Pray with me, please. Lord, fill this place with your Spirit. Fill the place in our hearts with your Spirit. Just touch us this day, Lord. Hear our praise. Hear our concerns. And send us forth whole. Amen. I want you to use your imagination for a minute. I want you to imagine that you are an artist. For those of you without too much artistic ability, that may be a stretch, but picture it for a minute. And somebody has asked you to paint a picture of somebody who is angry. What colors would you use? Red. Yeah, red, the color of anger, right? The color that we wave in front of a bull, right? Yeah. So certainly that person's face would be beet red with anger. And then somebody said black. You know, black's the mood when you're angry, so the background would probably be black. And white. White are the lips, clenched across, drawn teeth, right? White are the knuckles. We all know what anger feels like, don't we? Anger is something we've all felt firsthand. Anybody who tells you that they have never been angry is either not telling the truth or not in touch with reality. The Apostle Paul, in his letter to the church at Ephesus, says something really important where anger is concerned. He says, be angry, but do not sin. Don't let the sun go down on your anger. What Paul's saying here is that it's okay to be angry. Anger is a normal response to a stimulus. When something upsets our sense of fairness, when our frustration tolerance is stretched to the limit and beyond, it's normal to get angry. It's not anything we need to feel guilty about. But Paul goes on to say, don't let the sun go down on your anger. You know, when I read the Gospels, I find time again when Jesus got angry. I mean, when he walked into the temple and he saw the corruption firsthand, when he saw the religious hierarchy taking advantage of the people and exploiting the people, when he saw them claiming to sell God's forgiveness in order to profit themselves, he got angry. And he picked up a coil of rope and he used it like a whip and he drove those money changers out of the temple. And he walked over to their tables and he flipped them over so the money spilled out. And then he let all the animals go free and he said to them, this is supposed to be a house of prayer. You've made it a den of thieves. In Mark's gospel, we read where the scribes and the Pharisees brought a lame man to Jesus to exploit him so as to test Jesus. And Mark's gospel says he was angry at their unbelief and their hardness of heart. Sometimes, folks, it's even okay to be angry at God. Because sometimes the sheer irrational unfairness of life just seems so stacked against us. Sometimes the pain we're feeling is just so intense that there's nobody left to be angry at but God. And even though God isn't responsible for our anger, even though God isn't responsible for our pain, even though God isn't the source of our problems, you know what? God is big enough and broad-shouldered enough to take our anger if it'll help us to get healed. Peter de Vries, in his novel, The Blood of the Lamb, tells the story of a father whose little girl is dying of leukemia. She's all he's got left. His wife has died. On her birthday, he comes to the hospital with this big, gooey birthday cake to celebrate the day. He walks into the room and discovers that she just died. He walks into the lobby of the hospital. It happens to be a Catholic hospital, and hanging on the wall is this big crucifix. And he takes the cake out of the box, walks up to the crucifix, and smashes it in Jesus' face. And then, his anger spent, he turns and walks out of the hospital to begin the process of healing. And DeVries says at that moment, the statue of Jesus appeared to smile. Don't let the sun go down on your anger. Be angry, but sin not. See, what Paul is saying is it's okay to be angry, folks. That's okay. The sin isn't what we do with the anger. That's the problem. If we're angry with somebody and we pick up a gun and shoot them, hey, that's sin, okay? Or if we say something deliberately nasty and hurtful to hurt back somebody who's hurt us, that's sin. Or if, on the other hand, we take that anger, and we bury it within ourselves, we repress it so as to make ourselves depressed, because that's often where depression comes from, is repressed anger. Well, that's not really good and healthy either, is it? So what we need to do is to find some concrete, constructive way to vent our anger. I knew of a father who had 4 sons. And so he put in the garage a pile of junk tires. Alongside him, he put a couple of baseball bats. And any time the kids got mad, their instructions were to go out and take that baseball bat and beat the daylights out of the tires until the anger was spent. Not a bad idea. Sparky Lyle, in his book about the Yankees, The Bronx Zoo, tells the story of Lou Piniella. He said every time Piniella struck out, he went berserk. As he struck out, everybody would just slide over on the bench. And he would come storming in. He'd kick the water cooler 2 or 3 times. He'd take the bat and he'd hit the bench. He'd pick off his hat and he'd throw it into the wall. And he'd say, the heck with it. And he'd sit down on the bench and start talking to everybody. Something beautifully therapeutic about that. Be angry, but sin not. How do you deal with anger?